the middle of the fourth line.
Middle of the fourth line. All right.
In that section, the Rebbe speaks about the beetle element. The beetle that the Roim are bottled to Elokos. But he does not plainly state it, beetle, we call the bottled to Elokos. The beetle mitzad tzir koimo, tzir koimo diak. But the effect of the tzir koimo diak, the Adam Kadmon. In other words, there is an encompassment of all the creation, entire creation. It's called Tzir Koima Diak. This encompassment brings along the principle of Bitul Tolakus. In other words, it's a very subtle thing. Even though it's an encompassment encompassing creation, which means it has a cognizance of the creation, a materials of the creation. But this cognizance of the creation is a cognizance of the creation from a divine perspective, which is inherently a bottle to Elokos. Therefore, it means that mitzad the beetle to Elokos, there is the cognizance of the creation.
Is the last sentence again? From cognizance
inside.
That the principle that due to the principle that it has beetle to Elokos, from this beetle to Elokos, there it comes along the cognizance of the creation. Tzir Koima Diak. The creation, Tzir Koima Diak, this is the entire creation top and down. This creation inherently is permeated with Bitul Tolakus, because Bitul Tolakus is what begets it in the first place. Adam Kadmon, Ak is Adam Kadmon. This Adam Kadmon.
To remain on this call, press 1.
The principle of Adam Kadmon is the perception of world. Adam Kadmon. Perception of world, of the entire spectrum of the world. But at that stage of Adam Kadmon, which means Kadmon means pristine, prior to it coming into being. Prior to it coming into being, it is entirely contained in the Elokos. It is entirely Elokos. So here we have a self-contradictory statement, it would seem, which is the entire Elokos, and it has the full cognizance of the creation of the world. Which means that the creation of the world is contained within the Elokos, originates within the Elokos itself. Due to this principle, this is what they're discussing. Because that the origination of the entire spectrum of world is from within the Elokos itself. Therefore, since that at that original state, there is full beetle to Elokos, therefore the entire spectrum of world has an inherent element of beetle. Since that its origination is from a beetle state. So I want to read inside so you can see what I'm trying to struggling with here. Let's start from the beginning of the fourth line from the top. Puf nun hey. Even though that in truth this nivra is bottle b'mtzius. Bottle b'mtzius means it is not a qualified beetle. It is bottle in a certain sense. Bottle b'mtzius is it has no self-identity at all. B'mtzius from the perspective of its existence. So as if it doesn't exist. Why so? Why does it get this in that the created entity has no mitzias? Because of the influence and the inspiration of the beetle of Tzir Kormediak, because since that this entire spectrum of creation is preconceived in Adam Kadmon. And Adam Kadmon is permeated with Oir Soif, which means that he has the beetle to Alakus inherently. This beetle is reflected and permeates the entire existence that comes from Adam Kadmon. Because at the original stage, at its origin, when it is conceived, when the creation is conceived, it is in a state of beetle. Therefore, this beetle has to permeate all that emanates from it. So in truth, it is bottle b'mtzius. Why is it bottle b'mtzius? Not because of its bottle b'mtzius. It's bottle b'mtzius because of the basis of its origin, of its being. The basis of its being is here komediak. What gives it a presence is the projection of Adam Kadmon. Adam Kadmon is completely one with Elokuz. And therefore, everything that's projected therein is one with Elokuz. So even though that in essence it is bottled to Elokuz, at the caliber, at the level of beetle of Tzir Koimadiak, Adam Kadmon, Adam Kadmon, as we already discussed, Adam Kadmon means the conception of the creation prior to its being created, as it is projected within the source. And therefore it's permeated with beetle. And then at the end of that line, and yet still, it is possible that it should be that from the perspective of his own choice, it should turn out to be the opposite. If it turns out the opposite, that's a few more words. The opposite means and it will be completely separated from Elokuz, which needs the divine protection. Rahman is not, Hashem has to protect him with that.
Excuse me, please mute your phone.
And the phones are not.
Yeah, somebody sits on there.
Oh, okay. So it's conceived that you would be completely separated, broken away from Elokuz, although that in fact Elokuz encompasses and gives it a presence. This principle that it gives it a presence What kind of presence does it provide it with? The presence that it provided is the sense that it's knowing of Elokut. That's a presence. As we spoke the other day, what is the unique quality in the creation of Adam, of the human being? Adam Kadmon is the beginning, the first concept in that. What is Adam versus the creation in general? Adam is that state of being, a divine creation that is aware of itself. And what is it aware about itself? It's aware that it's a divine creation. It's aware of its unity, unity, to beetle to Elokut. It's aware that its beetle to Elokut is what makes it be. So although it's aware of this fundamental truth, yet still it can turn out that after that he has become self-oriented, he should have a completely opposite perception. Beginning of the fifth line. And he should turn out to be the opposite of Shalom, which means and he will be completely broken away from Elokut. He will completely focus on himself and forget about the Elokut, which is not only originally, this is what maintains it being. How can that be? The Elokut is what maintains his being, not only originally, but maintains it. And he is a full-fledged being, and he is not aware of the source of his own being.
He's not.
Not aware.
I thought we just said he is aware. That's what makes him unique.
No. I hear where the words make it very confusing. The type of creation, type of being he is that he is capable of being aware.
Aware.
Capable of being aware. That's what Adam is. This being aware is, you can say, the double-edged sword. On the one hand, he can be aware of the Elokut that gives him being, as Machaya. On the other hand, he is also aware of himself. This awareness of himself can blot out his recognition that the Elokut is what gives him the chayes. Becomes needful to Elokut. In order to be connected to Elokut, I have to speak about, there's a prerequisite. There's a must be of a certain quality. You cannot be aware of, connected to Elokut without this quality. What quality is this? This quality is called bitul. We had used a muscle for this. There's no moshel for Elokus in the world, a precise moshel. Nonetheless, within the world, the context, this is kind of a moshel. What a moshel did we point out? The moshel of air and breathing. A person cannot survive a moment without air. This whole structure is that he is constantly breathing air. But then there is a kind of an odd kind of a experience. On the one hand, air is a constant experience with a human being. Anything that's constant, one is not aware of its being because it's constant. And yet, in the case of air, there's a constant breathing in and breathing out, which means he is aware. So this is why we use this breathing phenomenon to demonstrate to emotions, give us a sense of the hergish that we have in Elokus. Hergish that Adam Kadma has in Elokus. On the one hand, going back to the mushal and going back to breathing is the entire phenomenon of human life. We already spoke about life is an absolute constant. There cannot be an interruption in life and pick it up again. Life is not a give and take, or take and leave go and go again. That does not exist in life. Life is a complete constant. That's what it's called encompassing. There is no interruption in life. Any moment of interruption in life is not recuperable. The Elokus, that is the basis of the entire creation, starting from Adam Kadmon. This is the principle of existence of the creation. This is the principle of the life and the creation. Therefore, there cannot be an interruption in that phenomenon. And yet still, we say, okay, let's step back. There cannot be an interruption in this phenomenon. That means that there is no self-consciousness. Anything that lives from that derives life from that phenomenon, has no self-consciousness because it's constantly being engulfed and embraced by that source of life. And we pointed out all the time, a person is alive, but he is not really aware that he's alive because life is a constant. To be aware, it has to be recognition of yes and no. There's no yes and no in life. You can't even project such a thing. The beetle that is contained, that is represented by Adam Kadmon, is exactly that type of beetle. Adam Kadmon is completely permeated, is one with Ein Sof. Ein Sof is not a one aspect that it's aware of. This is its home it seems. Elokut is what it represents. And since that Elokut is what Adam Kadmon represents, therefore all creatures that are sourced in Adam Kadmon have this similar awareness, the similar impact of the Elokut that Adam Kadmon represents. So that all creatures effectively, not only do they exist from Elokut, but they actually bottle to Elokut. I have to reiterate something that we said a little while ago. We are so accustomed to recognize the materials of the world that it is almost a shock to us. Oh yeah, the world is a creation. The world is a world, is material. In order for us to recognize the world as a creation, we have to reflect a step higher. And we have that capacity to reflect a step higher. What is a step higher? What is the principle of existence? We have the intelligence of an neshama level. What is existence per se? Does it make sense that something should exist? We can't even project what it is. Even though we are experiencing it all the time, we live it in existence. The reason that we can believe it in existence and accept it without any challenge is due to the fact that this existence represents not itself, it represents its own source, the divine source, the divine will that it should be exist. To put it in very simple terms, in logical terms, it would be that an existence represents something which is higher than existence. And as a result of this cognizance, that's why we can accept the principle of existence. What is this higher than existence that justifies existence? This is called Elokut. As we started yesterday or the day before, we are constantly referring to God. What do we mean when we say God? We have in our own mentality, you have to obey God, you have to follow his ways and so forth. This is all from the perspective of how we are supposed to function and act in respect to God. But what is God actually, how does God touch us? How does godliness touch us? Here is where these two aspects comes together. What two aspects? We said before that for something to be, it has to come into being. Our awareness of God, since we're aware of it, it has to be something that we come to become aware of it. If not to be able to become to be aware, we have to be also unaware. But there's no such thing as not aware of God. Of God. Therefore, that means that our awareness of God defies world-level awareness. World-level awareness has to have both of these stages, yes and no. And yet we are aware of God, and you cannot possibly go through these two stages. So awareness of God does not go through this world process. Huh? I'm sorry. Oh. It doesn't go through this process. It's awareness, but it's not an awareness that we get to it. It's a constant awareness. This is like a condition in terms.
You can't be aware of something that's constant.
You can't be aware of something that's constant.
And yet this is a constant
And
awareness.
this is the constant awareness. How does that ultimately jive in human mind? How it happens, this is the maybe thing. But how does a human being relate to it? It has to be indeed, it has to go through the process of his intelligence. We speak about God, so that means there's an intelligent way of relating to it. And this is where the principle of idea mugdelas be'erech comes in.
What about bittul?
What?
What happened to bittul?
Then nothing happened. Bittul is Bittul. Bittul is part of that awareness.
The constant awareness.
The constant awareness, constant Bittul. How does it work out, so to speak, in the human mind? He's aware of something, but he's aware of something that he cannot not be aware. How is he aware of it? The awareness is, and that's when we say, he knows of something that is a presence. But this presence is not a presence similar to all our presences that he experiences in the world. It is not a presence that he comes to know by experiencing. It is a presence that he relates to through Bittul. He knows of this presence because he knows of his own not being. Therefore, this presence is constantly bringing his own self-recognition into being. This is why he's constantly aware of Elokut. Elokut is constantly making me be a mitzvah. This is the beetle, where he is stuck in bottle to Elokut. And beside this beetle, Elokut is constantly in his awareness. But then there's one important caveat in this, that this is not purgish b'nivron, not sense b'nivron. He knows that this is the way it works, but he is not constantly aware that he doesn't exist and come into being. He's not coming to being. He's a constant being. You try to insult him, he'll speak to you in the face. Hey, what are you doing? Why are you saying you get so excited? I insulted that moment when you weren't existent. What do you mean I wasn't existent? I've always existed. This is the miracle of the creation. To stop, not that you've been exposed to such fine insight, to stop and reflect. And we, human beings, in intelligence, were provided that type of awareness, that type of insight. I'm in constant awareness of the world, in constant awareness of myself. At the same time, I have a full pleasure cognizance that this presence is something which is rooted in something much greater. It's not my mitzias is what makes my mitzias. It represents a much greater truth. And most importantly, think about it. I am here because I am wanted that it should be. I'm not here by accident. I happen to be here. My presence here is very important. Is sought after. Is valued. It is valued to the extent that I'm being watched and guarded all the time.
Can I ask something?
Yeah, yes, just 1 second. I'm always in the middle of a thought. Just 1 second. The Gemara says, Odom yesh le mazel, v'hema ela mazel. What's that about? There is a ditch in the middle of a pathway. A ditch is a place where potential hazard. This hazard, if this pathway is exclusively a human pathway, the person who is responsible for that ditch, who made the ditch, is not really called a mazi, because a human being will be aware of the ditch and he'll bypass it. Even if the ditch materializes suddenly, he'll become aware of it. If this is a pathway that made for behemoths, then the behemoth is sure to fall into this ditch. Even though behemoths also don't fall into ditches. They know when it's dangerous. But nobody is going to wake the behemoth, watch out, there's a ditch. A human being will be alerted to it. Somehow you'll be alerted to it. This is called mazel. You must have Odom yesh le mazel. There's a malach that watches the Sodom and say, watch out, there's a ditch on the way. There's not such malach that will await a behemoth that he shouldn't come when it's in the ditch. Odom yesh le mazel, mazel. Therefore, if a person opens a ditch and the behemoth falls into it, he's responsible because there's no way the behemoth can protect itself against this ditch. The Behemoth doesn't automatically go into a ditch, but he wasn't aware of it and he walks into it. If an Odom falls into it, that's what the Gemara says. Not for Shoma Sheirach Hamei, the Gemara says, the Torah says. Not for Shoma. If a person opens a ditch in the public domain, and the Sheirach Hamei falls into it, he is responsible. Shorev lo Yodom, but if an Odom falls into it, he's not responsible. You should be consciously aware of it. I wasn't aware there's a ditch. You should be aware where you step every step. Odom yesh l'maz. They always say the halacha brings things out mamish to the clearest moment. Yes, I'm sorry. You still remember your question?
Now I have another question. So why is Chamor v'lo kailem?
Bruce?
Chamor v'lo kailem, you want to understand.
Chamor v'lo kailem?
Yeah.
Because kailem do not walk on their own.
Ah, okay. There's the Odom, still the Odom.
Yeah, it's still Odom or Chamor. There's no, that's right. I don't have to protect kailem. He not going to run into the ditch.
Right. The kailem is from the Odom. The Odom is the
That's
one.
right.
I see. But we're talking now that awareness cannot be someone cannot be aware if it's a constant. I remember in the past,
cannot be aware
if it's a constant, if it's a constant.
A constant.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the past, it used to be explained on a mashal on Chachma that, like in physical, you can't pick up a table only from the edges. Means from nowhere you could pick it up where there is something. So always in Chachma, you can know something only by the edges, meaning to say by not knowing, and now you know this is how the Chachma comes in. There's the possibility of Chachma. Is this what we're letting you know?
They're not saying that about Chachma, they're saying about Bina, not Chachma.
Even
Chachma do not know by edges. We pointed out this. This is an important point. We open our eyes and we look into the deep horizon. We have no beginning and no end, no edges, and yet we see it. This sight is similar to the sight of Chachma. We see it because it's true, not because it touches us in some way, makes us aware of something.
I don't understand the point of this question.
But it was always said that Chachma has a starting point. Like you didn't see, now you open eyes and seeing.
This is why they called Chachma, because it's possible for you to close your eyes, but not to be aware of where it's coming from.
But the possibility of closing your eyes is not. It's more to say because you didn't know and now you know. The closing of the eyes means there's actually not only possible. You closed your eyes. You saw it because you didn't see before, and now you see it. There's a beginning time.
No, that's not a beginning. When you close your eyes,
it's not
and
a
you
constant.
open your eyes. What?
It's not a constant.
It is a constant. When you open your eyes, you see it as a constant. The reason when you open your eyes, you see it immediately is because you're looking at that which is constant.
But now we're saying that Chachma is not being acquired if it's a constant. Awareness cannot be acquired if it's a constant.
This is why we said before that we are capable of reflecting what does mitzias mean? How can we reflect if we never experienced not mitzias? The reason we can reflect what mitzias means is that in fact we have a level of knowledge that is higher than Chachma. It's called oineg and rotzen. And oineg and rotzen, this is something which is being supplied to us all the time. This is what life is. With Chachma, we can reflect how that becomes aware, a knowledge in Chachma. This in the beginning is not that the Chachma, that what you know has a beginning. Your knowledge of it, your knowing of it has a beginning, not the thing that you know.
Okay.
And now we reached our.
And it's like we always said that now when you understand something, you're saying you always know it. You always.
That's
know
right.
It. Okay.
All right. I think that the bell rang. Is that correct?
The bell rang. That is correct.
All right.
Thank you.
Go to Shlomo, go to.
You can see it, folks.